Welcome to my second screencast. I'm John Pavley, and I'm going to show you something cool. We are going to parse HTML5 using Swift and TFHpple, which is a library that allows you to use XPath. Okay, now I've learned a bit from my first video, so this video you're going to see is we have a bigger screen, so therefore we're going to have bigger text. I have a bigger microphone. I have new desktop art. It's very exciting. And today I'm going to demo how to parse an HTML page in Swift with an open source library written in Objective-C. And if you're new to iOS coding and learning Swift for the first time, then this integration of something, modern like Swift with something old-timey like Objective-C probably sounds scary. I'm scared, and I'm an old-time Objective-C coder. But, when everyone approaches the compiled code, one should move slowly and be careful not to wake the dragon. But fear not, I'm going to do my best to explain the C traps and pitfalls. By the way, that's a joke, C traps and pitfalls. That's a shout out to one of my favorite books written 1,000 years ago, back when everybody programmed in C. Also note that I am using, we're OS X El Kappa 10, and the version of Xcode that we're using is 7.31. We'll put that over there, put this here. So El Kappa 10, 10.11.5. If we bring up the terminal and we bring up Swift, we can do that through the command line. You'll see that we're using version 2.2. So why am I doing all this? So what I'm doing is letting you see all the different versions of the tools, because by the time you watch this video, I guarantee there'll be different versions, and Apple has a way of putting everything in a different place. And when that happens, things change slightly. So I'm going to try to focus on the fundamentals, and you'll, if you know enough and you just hunt around, you'll figure out where to put things. Now, I'll try to explain things quickly as we go along. And if you're self-taught like me, sooner or later, you're going to need to read and study how compilers, linkers, source files, make files, and object files work. So I'll try to point all that out, but this is a very quick tutorial, so we're not going to get too deeply into that. So you're going to have to do some research on your own. Can't do everything in a video, like a 10-minute video. So let's make sure that we have Xcode up, and we don't. So Xcode goes away very easily. Xcode, just hang out. Hang out, Xcode. In fact, let's get started with a new Xcode project. We're going to make it a single view application, which we always do. They should just make that really easy. And we're going to call this fun with TFHpple. How do you pronounce it? TFHpple? Maybe we'll pronounce it that way. Okay, so we're just going to say next and save it somewhere, and we don't care. And then we'll make that small and just put this over here in the side. Very good. Now, what else do we need? Well, I'm going to open up Chrome. And why am I opening up Chrome? I'm going to open up Chrome because I want to go to a particular web page, and we'll go there in a minute. Okay, so we got that all set up. Oh, and you know what I also need? I need a new Finder window. I know I'm going to need it, so let me just open it, and we're going to put it over here to my downloads, and we're just going to knock that over here and keep that available. All right, I'm all set. So now the first thing we want to do, because, let's explain a little bit. So we want to take a HTML page, a web page basically, and we want to go in there and we want to get some data out of it and display it on our iOS application screen. That's going to be a lot of fun. And the best way to do this is to use a tool called XPath, and to make it real easy, somebody has written a library for us. So all you have to go is go to TFHpple, Swift. Look at that. I did that. And we have to find, let's find GitHub. There we go, GitHub. Find the library. There it is, Top Funky Hipple. And there it is. Okay, so it's right here. Just make that a little bigger. Very good. And you can see that it is a nice Objective-C wrapper on the XPath query library for parsing HTML, inspired by Why the Lucky Stiffs Apricot. Whatever. I'm not going to try to pronounce that. Let's just thank those people nicely. I'm going to do this in a really dumb way. I'm just going to download this thing. Okay, and download this library. I'm not going to do a pull request or use CocoaPods or anything too complicated. And now I'm going to go into here, and here it is. And when I double click on it, I actually have an earlier copy, but I wanted to show you downloading it. I open it up, all right, and inside is an example, and it actually has a pod spec in case you were actually using CocoaPods, which we're not. It has the license. You should always check the license. Hello, license. Oh, good. It's the MIT license. We're good. We're not going to get in trouble. And now I'm going to keep clicking, and I actually find the actual classes. So I'm going to select all these classes, and over here is the project that I created. There it is, my fun little project. And I'm going to drag all of these guys. Hold on, it's not dragging. Drag all these guys, and let's just put them out at the bottom. I'm going to click copy items if needed. Not sure why that even exists. Why don't you always copy the items? Create groups and make sure that it's added to the target Fun with Hipple so it will all compile together. If you don't do that, then basically the compiler doesn't know it's there and it just ignores those files. So I hit finish and it says create bridging header, and I'm like, whoa, what's that? And it gives you like a little explanation here because you're creating a mixed Swift and Objective-C target. So a target is actually the thing that you're building that's going to run on the phone. They call that a target. You know, I would call that an app, but they call it a target because you could have multiple targets inside your Xcode project. And, you know, one could be for the TV OS, and one could be for the Watch OS, and one could be for maybe, you know, I don't know, a particular device. But what we want to do is for this, our only target, we want to make sure that we have this bridging header. And that allows classes to be accessed by both languages, which is what we want. We want Swift to be able to access the classes that were written in Objective-C that make up TFHpple. So I'm going to say OK to that, and I get this extra file here. So let me, come on, there we go. Show you. Oh, it went away. That wasn't very good. There it is. Okay, so this is the bridging file. We're going to play with that in a minute. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select all these files, and I'm just going to tidy up. I'm going to take all my TFHpple files, except for the bridging file, and I'm going to say new group from selection. I'm going to call this TFHpple Hipple there. So I just put them all there. They're still there. And that's just some cosmetic improvement so that, you know, you don't have to see all this kind of stuff. All right. Now, that's the starting. So now we're like just about ready to do our thing. So now let's have some fun. Okay. So let's set up this guy here, the bridging file. Make this a little bit bigger. There we go. So I don't know why actually Apple couldn't actually do all this for us, but we have to do it ourselves. Import, and the first thing we're going to import is Foundation. And this is old school, right? So the Foundation folder has foundation.h in it. And if you're using Swift, you never have to do this. Not this way. It's much simpler, right? And then we do another pound import, not import. And now, instead of the angle brackets, we are going to use quotes. And we're going to do TFHpple because these are relatively local files for us. And so we import that header file. And we have one more to do. So why are we importing these header files? Well, the header file, so before Swift, there was C, actually Objective-C, and before Objective-C, there was C. And C uses something called header files that our friends Objective-C and C++, which we're not even talking about here, sort of adopted. So you have two files. You have the file with all of the functions in it and classes and structures. And then you have another file called the header file that basically has all the names of things. They're declared there, but they are not defined. They're defined in the .c file, or in the case of Objective-C, the .m file. But the .h file contains the declaration. So you can import the declarations, but not the definitions, which allows you to, the compiler, to kind of know that these things exist. All this is ancient history, not a problem right now. But anyway, there we go. All right, so now, unfortunately, comes a very difficult part, which is we have to play with this guy here. Apple is doing its best to make the compiler settings really easy. In the old days, you would use the command line. So you would, let's create a new guy here. And let's say that you wanted to compile something, right? So you might say GCC, and then you would give the name of the file, file.c, and you'd have all kinds of stuff, and you would have other flags and other files. So in any case, that all just was a pain, and people wanted to get rid of it. So instead, we got more pain. We got all of these settings here, build settings, general settings, right? And we could have different targets for them. So this gets very complicated very fast. Anyway, the reason that we need to work with this is basically TFHpple is a library that uses another library, a compiled library, which is the libxml 2.2. So we need to add that in. So how do we do that? So what we have to do is we have to go down to linked frameworks and libraries. So what I'm going to do, let's just close all these up here because we don't need to look at them. All right, I'm going to hit this little plus sign. And then here's all the libraries and frameworks that you have. Look at that. A million of them, a gazillion of them are in here, right? So now I just want the lib XML, and which one do I want? XML 2.2. There it is. So add that one. And while we're at it, let's add in lib XML2. Okay, there we go. So these two libraries are required, and they're going to get compiled in to our application. They're going to get linked in with our application and compiled together. Unfortunately, we're not done yet. So that's just the beginning. So the libraries are now going to be part of our target. Awesome, right? But we have more to do. So we need to go to make sure, let's go to build settings and make sure that all is checked and combined is checked. And even though we know where the libraries are, we just added them, we have to basically make sure Swift can find them from our source files. So we're going to have to type in search paths. Okay, so search paths. Oh boy, that's a lot of fun. Okay, so again, we don't need this. We don't need to worry about that. We don't need to worry about any of these. These are the ones here, our search paths. And what we want are header search paths. Where are they? I don't see them. Maybe it's under linking? No, they're gone. Header search paths. All right. User header search paths. That's not what I want. Header search paths. This is what I want. Okay. So you get to have a debug and release. And we're doing a debug build. but I'm going to just put these in both places. So I click the little plus, any architecture, any SDK. That means for anything that can ever happen, I want to have this there. And, and then I'm going to type in something that's going to look really funny, $, SDK root. And so that's a variable, and that variable says wherever the root of the SDK is, that's where I want to start. And then I'm going to do usr/include/libxml2. All right, and since I'm going to use this again, I'm just going to copy it, hit return, and there we go. And I'm going to do the same thing for release. Hit that little plus button, paste that puppy in there, hit return. So what's this is telling us is for the compiler, we'll find the libraries that we just added to the project in this location, which is actually, this is complicated. It's actually inside Xcode, because Xcode, the application, is actually also a directory with directories inside of it. So that's a really cool property that macOS applications have. Comes all the way back from the Next Step world, but don't worry about that. And notice that our variable $SDK root was automatically turned into iPhone OS. So that's some magic that Apple's doing, and we don't have to worry about it. So it's just there. Okay, so that's a little scary, but it's there. Now, the next thing we want to do is we want to search for other linker flags. Okay, there it is, other linker flags. Look at that. And then we're going to open that up. And again, we have the debug and release thing going on. And, this is just for fun, so you're probably not actually going to release this, but I'm going to put it in there anyway, so that if by off chance you actually release to the public something that you're doing and try to get it approved by Apple in the App Store, you're not going to run into problems. So any architecture, say I hit that plus again, I get any architecture, any SDK, and you can actually be very specific what I want to do, but we're going to do it for any, because we don't really care at this point. And then in here, I'm going to type a tiny little thing, -L XML2. So that is all I'm going to type in there. That's pretty awesome, right? And I'm going to do it again for release. And so this is a flag. So back when the linker was a Unix tool and the compiler was a Unix tool, which, by the way, they still are, you just don't see it. The way Unix works is that one tool does something, outputs a file, and then that's input for the next tool, and it does something and outputs a modified file or set of files, and then that is an input for the next tool. And it's this chain that the input from one thing is transformed, it becomes the output by another thing that becomes input again, and so it's a really cool thing. And so this is a flag that we're going to use, so that we're just telling the linker tool, which we don't even see and never touch, that we're using library XML2. So there we go. That's all that was. And I know it was a lot of work. I apologize, but we got it figured out. And we're almost done. Almost done. We're actually done with the linker part and the library part for TFHpple. But one thing that you'll find out when you try to get content from the web is that iOS is very, very protective. And it will block your attempts to get any data over HTTP because it's suspicious, because it could be dangerous. So you actually have to change the security settings in your iPhone app. So you go to info.plist, and instead of creating a fancy UI for all of these settings like they did for the linker and compiler settings, we don't have that. We have more of this sort of, this is a plist. It's really just an XML file. But what we're going to do is view it as sort of this set of fields. And what we need to do is enable some app transport security settings. It doesn't really matter where. I always kind of pick here, and I hit the plus button right there. And then I'm going to find app transport security settings, right? And hit return. And it becomes a dictionary with 0 items in it. And I'm going to hit this little triangle and knock it down. And so that's very important. Hit the triangle, knocked it down, and now I'm going to hit plus again, allow arbitrary loads, and then where it says no, I'm going to double click on it, and I'm going to type yes you are. And I'm not going to change that. So what did I just do? So what I did is I enabled allow arbitrary loads, and that means that you'll be able to get data from HTTP. So that is super exciting. We are so excited about that. Now, at long last, all of the setup and everything is done, and this is a good time to save all your work, to this sort of make a bookmark of what you're doing and save this to source control. So I have brought up the interface to commit the code. Here's all the changes that we made. Look at all these changes. Remember that change? We changed our bridging header and added this information in it. We changed info.plist. And as I said, you saw it and it looked like it was a bunch of fields, but it's actually an XML file. These are all the TFHpple files that we added. That's nice. And then inside the project, we also did a bunch of work. And, we're not going to go over all this stuff. Actually, some of this we don't need to actually save, but let's just leave that all. So anyway, it doesn't matter what's highlighted here, but I'm going to write a little message. I'm going to say set up the build and security settings. So that sounds somewhat understandable, not the best English in the world. Then I hit commit 10 files, right? Boom. And you'll see all of those letters went away. So whenever you see a little letter, M for modified, A for added, then you go to source control and you do a commit, which I use Option Command C, and it's fun. And there it is. Now we didn't make any changes, so we don't have anything there. But what you can do is when you have something selected, you can go here and you can show your, you can go here and you can show the source code change that you made, which is somewhere in here is the source. Oh, because I'm all up to date. I have to go back. And so as you go back, you get the differences. There we go. So this is the new stuff that I added, and here's old stuff. This is terrible, scary looking code, so don't worry about that. We're never really ever going to look at that. Let's go back to our regular view, and what we want to do instead now is go into one of my favorite files and yours, the viewcontroller.swift, where all the magic happens. Now in this particular app, we're not going to play with the main storyboard. There's the main storyboard over there. And if we actually wanted something to show on the screen, we would use the main storyboard and we drag out some stuff from here, like maybe a button or something. But we're not going to do any of that because for fun, in fact, let's just make this big now, we are going to just print it to the console because we are programmers. Oh, look, I got a little beach ball there for a second. All right. Now, the first thing we're going to do, and you're going to laugh. You're going to laugh because we just did all that work. And what did it take? 20 minutes? I don't even know how long I've been talking. But the actual amount of code we're going to write is very, very little. So we're going to say, hey, let, which means we want a constant, data, which is the name of our constant variable. And we're going to use ns_data. There it is. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use the contents of a URL. which is an NS URL. And you want to actually pick a URL to use. I think the best URL to use in this case will be my blog. And why do I want to do that? Because I own all that content, and I'm not going to get mad if I go and write an app that sucks down my content. So, don't do anything illegal. That would be bad. So it has a named argument string, and I'm going to type in my quotes, and now I'm going to do HTTP and a couple of backslashes, colon, 2 backslashes, www.pavly.com. So this is where you could put in your blog or whatever else that you properly 100% legally can do. All right. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is create another constant, right? So what I just did here is the magic of the Swift and Cocoa frameworks is taking that URL and it's turning into data, turning into an NS data object. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that NS data object and I'm going to turn it into a document that XPath can actually use to dig into, and I'm using a TFHpple for that. So I'm going to write in TFHpple right there, and I'm going to say HTML data. And what is the source of the data? Well, the source of the data is data. Because you see, I called it data before. All right, so that's really good. I got all that going. Oh, I forgot. Oh, see, look at this. This is a red. Actually, I created a breakpoint. I don't want a breakpoint. This red guy here says, ooh, the value of NS URL is an optional, but it's not unwrapped. Why? Why is it an optional? Well, what if pavly.com doesn't exist? What if I mistyped something? So I'm going to fix it, though, because I know it exists, and it gets an exclamation point. So it unwraps this guy, which then makes this guy happy. It loads data, and now we're good. Of course, we have the yellow reminder of you didn't use this data, you didn't use this variable, so don't worry about that. That's not a problem yet. That's just a little reminder. All right, so now we have a document that we can actually transverse using XPath, using an XPath query, and that's a whole thing in and of itself. You can get a book on it. In fact, I have a book on it from 1999, the XML Black Book, and it's still relevant. It's one of the few books I have in my library of technical stuff that's not totally, completely outdated. Anyway, let's use a very simple query to look through my website and whatever's on the home page, and let's just print all the paragraphs, all the paragraph elements. So we're going to use if let, and we're going to say elements. And so what this is doing is saying if elements actually exists and is not nil, and we're going to get elements from doc, and now we're going to do dot, and these are all of the functions that a TFHpple element actually has. So or the TFHpple object, I should say, actually has. So the one that I want to use is search with XPath query. There we go. And now let's figure out what query I want to use. Well, I'm going to use a really dumb query starting at the root of the document. Just find me a list of all the p tags. Any element that's wrapped in a p tag, in HTML, that's the paragraph, just return that. And I have to cast it. So I'm going to say as an array of TFHpple elements. All right, there we go. So that's the syntax for an array of TFHpple elements. And I use my little question mark there, because what if that cast is not possible? Well, we know it's possible, so we're professionals, we know what's going on, it's going to be okay. Anyway, so if the search actually returns some elements, Then I go inside my little clause here, and I'm going to say, I'm going to do go through each element. So I'm going to say, and remember the first screencast I did was on the for loop, so I'm going to use a for loop, and it's going to iterate through all the elements, all the element for each element in elements. All right, it doesn't have each in there. Isn't that interesting? All right, and then so for each element in elements, we are going to print a little divider, boom, 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 like that, like old school ASCII, and then we're going to just print the elements content, element dot slash dot content. There we go. All right, so there's a lot of other functions we could have used, but that's what we're going to use. All right, and you see how we got those M's there, and that means we modified the view controller. Now I'm just going to run this. I don't know what's going to happen. Is it going to work? Let's not run it on the I always choose like the smallest one. Where's the little baby one? The iPhone 4S. So just choose the smallest one there and for the simulator. And I'm going to hit run. Now we're not really going to care about the simulator. Simulator pops up. That's awesome. And you see it's actually booting. And there we go. And our little app is running, and we can go, and it's doing its thing. And over here, I don't know if you saw, but nothing's happening here. We have to go back, and what I want to do is let's just clear that out and drag that up. So this is all the paragraphs on my blog post. See? So on my blog. So let's go to pavly.com. Let's do a compare. Pavly.com, right? There we go. And this is my blog. Look, isn't it beautiful? Look, it's like responsive design and everything. So we're just going to put that over there and make it look like a little. It looks like a little iPhone itself. There we go. That's a blog post I wrote. And then let's go back to Xcode and unzoom it. Get rid of this. There we go. And just put that over there so we can easily compare. Did we actually get it? Xcode, by the way, notice Xcode can't get any smaller. That's it. That's as small as it gets. So a great leap in the dark. You see that? Oh, well, there it is. So that must be the first thing wrapped in a paragraph tag. And if I go into my more tools, developer tools, and I hit, where's my source? Where did they put it? I don't know. Anyway, this is become way too complicated. You should just be able to go to view source. View source. There we go. View source. Thank you. I don't want all that. So look at all this junk WordPress does for me. Thank you. Where is a great leap in the dark? Thomas Hobbes. We'll do find. Thomas Hobbes. There it is. Okay. So this was the title, and somehow it found that as a paragraph. Interesting. And then I ride the quiet car. Well, that's probably down here somewhere. Let's try this again. Ride. Yeah, there we go. So I ride a commuter train to work. That's actually in a P tag. So interesting that the Thomas Hobbes thing was in the title. Oh, well, it's in the title, but that you don't see that, right? Right, yeah. So this is just the title element. So my guess is there's a repeat. Yes, there it is. There it is. There's a repeat, and it is, in fact, a P tag. If I make it a little bigger, no, whatever. Okay, so cool. So there it is there. And then, so each of these are all the P tags. Now you could then say, I'm going to grab the 20th one, and I'm going to put that into my app. So we're done. That's awesome. And I want to thank you very much. Good job, everybody. And we will be back soon, I promise, with another one of these awesome how to do it video screencasts.